Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we are reviewing the Everton Newcastle 1-1 draw. Dominic Calvert Lewin's scoring drought is over, and it seemed like the foreign commentators were even more excited about it than Everton fans because they decided to pluck out a modification of the Bella Ciao song. It's a game where I feel that a lot of season-defining moments happened for this team. I think we're talking more so about the growth element, and that's not just from a player standpoint, but that is also from a coaching standpoint. From even before the game, accountability needed to be taken from the Bournemouth match. It was pretty lethargic. There wasn't really much intent shown. And whilst the changes didn't necessarily translate on the pitch, it showed the intention, by Dyche to sort of hold players to account and say, well, this is not good enough. You're going to the bench. DCL was one of those names. Jack Harrison wasn't available today. Coleman went to the bench after conceding that own goal, of course. And then Idrissa Gana Gueye enters the starting lineup for James Garner, who went to the bench. But then in the middle of the game, I think the real season-defining moment, the moment that could potentially change Everton's season for the better, was that offside call. Because that offside call, if that is not an offside, and it was very, very fractional, it obviously goes from a 1-0 game to a 2-0 game. And that message that you say to the subs, as much as it probably doesn't alter, the messaging from a Dyche perspective, like he's going to be telling the players, you need to absolutely chase the game. That's why we're bringing you into the match. It becomes so much more achievable if it's 1-0, and the players have that belief that they can actually get back into this game, actually swing a result. And it looks more possible given, Everton's lack of scoring in recent games. So, that really changed the complexity of the match. And the 3 subs were made, and they were 3 subs that Dyche doesn't usually make that early on and to that degree. 3 subs, Onana off, Beto off, and then Doucouré off. Those are 3 pretty key players, pretty key cogs in the team, or players that play in very key positions for the team, especially when you're trying to chase that 1-0 lead. So they were great moves by Dyche. And then the minute those players came into the game completely swung the other way. Obviously, it's easy to look at DCL and say, well, he scored the goal, and, that ultimately was the difference. And obviously, he was the best sub. But no, James Garner, mate, that guy was absolutely everywhere in the final 30. He was throwing his body around, getting, blocks in. He had a shot on goal, which really should have gone in. He was getting a lot of touches in attacking areas. Dwight McNeil was feeding him a couple of times. So that was really important that, James Garner was just like, I've got nothing to lose. I need to respond from the previous game because I offered nothing. Yeah, a great response by him. He was probably the more important piece to our game. But even Andre Gomez, you just see the creativity is a lot better with those guys in the team. Do you want to compromise the defensive side of your game? Well, I would say that offense/attack is your defense or your defense. If you can get the ball in more attacking areas, that obviously provides more cushioning for your back line because, it's going to take further, or the ball needs to travel further in order to get into our more vulnerable spaces. So I think those guys are so important. You can have Doucouré in the game for work rate, but if we're being serious, if we're being realistic, he needs to get a spell on the sidelines in terms of coming off the bench, because right now, the passing isn't happening for him. The work rate can only do so much. It's all off-ball work rate. It's nothing on the ball. It just gets incredibly disjointed. And I don't think they're right now, even though he scored the most goals in the team this season, all those goals were at the beginning of the season. And as far as I'm concerned, you need a fresh slate. You need to change the dynamic within the team. And look, I feel like Beto, he was getting a lot of touches much higher up the pitch because, Everton were in possession so deep on the pitch. They needed more reinforcement. They needed the strikers to not be as isolated, so they needed to move forward. But that is why I'm talking about players like Gomez and Garner needing to be in the team over Doucouré at the moment, because Doucouré can't even get the ball to our striker. He's not the connector that we're looking for at the moment. A lot of those second balls where the header's taken down by Beto in the first half, where was Doucouré? Where was Onana? These guys weren't really that present. And you know, Garner and Gomez, I feel like I have a little bit more faith in them to play a pass and get us into the attacking half and get us into some more dangerous areas, you know, thread the eye of the needle with the pass. So I think those plays are really, really important to our team. We've got to find the balance, but I do feel if you're going to, you know, reward players on merit, you've got to give Garner and Gomez a go based off the impact they served or the impact, you know, that they had within the game, because it just completely changed, you know, the team. We went to another dimension in terms of, you know, not needing to play from the back as much and hoof the ball forward. We could play our way through and it looked a little bit more reassured. And, you know, Newcastle were under the pump. They really couldn't clear it. As for the goal, I mean, DCL coming on was actually a blessing in disguise because, you know, we look at Beto. When we had our first penalty of the season, he blew it. And DCL was on the sidelines, and I'm like, well, we would have loved to have him in the team on the pitch at the time so he could take that penalty and then break the curse, break the streak, you know, take that looming stat out of his headspace, and then we would be able to move forward from there. But this time, you know, it actually served as a huge blessing that he was coming off the bench and Deitch made that sub, because he was on the pitch when the decision was called. And what a day. I mean, DCL scoring, VAR calls going our way. I mean, a great sort of outcome for, you know, the way we started. And we started the game well, but, you know, the backline yet again looked a little bit exposed. The midfield weren't doing the backline any favors. And Jordan Pickford, he's going to be my player of the game for the match today, purely off the back of making a ton of, you know, good saves, a pure shot stopper today. You know, his clearance work and his distribution wasn't too great. Nothing too top shelf, but, you know, we needed to keep the ball out of the back of the net for a long, long time. And Jordan Pickford was just instrumental. I mean, there were a couple of really timely key saves. Speaking of key saves, there was one save that wasn't even a keeper. It was a defender, Vitalii Mykolenko. Honestly, he came back today and didn't look like he really had skipped a beat. There were a couple passes where he was a little bit, you know, he got his feet muddled and we looked a little bit exposed in the back half because of where he was possessing it. But in the second half, that goal line save right on the line to deny Isak of a second, you know, that's really team lifting stuff yet again. And when you talk about 2-0 as opposed to a 1-0 and what that does for your mentality, you know, those moments right there don't just change the complexity of the game, but obviously in the long term, the season, because, you know, we had 3 straight losses. We could have had a 4th, and that really, really puts you under the pump against a Burnley side who have picked up a couple of draws in recent games, and also at Goodison as well. So who knows where we would have been if we lost another game today. But you know what? Really good second half fight back. And I'm really proud of the lads because, yeah, I think we did deserve to get a goal based off what we did in the second half. Couple chances earlier in the game, for sure. But, you know, in the second half, you know, that Garner poster, we were getting a few more through balls happening. You know, there were some really good 50-50 chances, and I think it was only right that we got a VAR call to go our way, and it absolutely had to be because, bro, Ashley Young got taken down with his head knocked off. Like, bro, seriously, if they didn't call that, I mean, it would have been an absolute travesty. But overall, a really good point, and you can take that form forward. I think the coaches showed a bit of progression in the way they sort of approach this. You know, we need change, and it's not good enough to just go with the same group and try apply a different philosophy, or for that matter, apply the same philosophy over and over again and try and still it. We needed to make some personnel changes, and it was good to see the changes. You know, initially we were proactive. It didn't really work, but then to see the coaching staff go at it and see that offside call for Newcastle, which resulted in a goal being disallowed, to see that happen and then be proactive in making some huge changes, which really changed the way the game was played. I think we've got to give them a ton of props. But overall, the drought's over. Thank God for that. Thank God for DCL. The goal was, I mean, not that convincing. He just did it Deitch style in terms of just absolutely belting the crap out of it. But, you know, it doesn't really matter how you do it. It just matters that it goes in the back of the net, and we haven't done that too much this season. But DCL took his chance. Very vocal crowd at St. James's Park today. And obviously, you know, you've got to deal with that external. You've got to deal with the internal stuff going on because the mindset would have been absolutely shot going into the game. Being dropped, haven't, you know, scored in 23 games. But I do feel as if he can, with this goal, you know, carry that form forward. And I think it happens at a great time of the season. And it's not just for him, but it's for the team. Because ultimately, DCL, as a striker, you've got a great amount of responsibility on your shoulders. But I think Everton are going to be a better team, objectively, if DCL can use this form as fuel. And hopefully, we see a few more goals in the back of the net off the foot of Dominic Calvert Lewin. So that's going to do it from me. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. Share your thoughts about the game in the comments. And yeah, that'll do it. We'll see you soon. And bye for now.